Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to go over something that I think has a lot of misconceptions based on some of the comments that y'all are saying, questions that you have. And so I'm trying to clarify that. So I hope this video will kind of add some light to y'all, anyone who's curious. Basically, there are two conflicting emotions that avoidants tend to need to know that you're the one. So these two conflicting emotions, they will feel it. And that helps them, while they're happening simultaneously, typically, to know that you are the person they want to commit to and that they love. Okay. So what are those two feelings off the jump? I'm just going to tell you. The first one is that you give them peace. And the second feeling is that if you leave, they will lose that peace. So another way to put it is a fear of loss. Okay. And a lot of people don't understand how that constitutes or breaks into the relationship. How does that intertwine? How can you and your partner understand these variables so that you can use some of these variables to create a deeper relationship? How does that look in a relationship? What is that supposed to look like? What do you do with that information? Okay. A lot of people get it wrong. And basically, the concept is they want you, but they also are afraid to lose you. And we're going to explain that. But before we do, I do want to put some disclaimer. And then if you guys don't want to hear it, just skip like a minute or two. A lot of people think that the fear of loss is that you have to leave for them to feel that way. That is the main part of this video that I think a lot of people get wrong. That's not true. Now, some people are like that, but a lot of people can appreciate things by having them. It depends on who you are, but in order for us to feel grateful of something, actually it needs to be there. Otherwise, they're actually not necessarily the feeling of loss of you. It's the idea of you. But you in of itself, some people might need to lose you, but often they need to understand your value. And that is what people don't understand, which is why they get into these types of dynamics where they do something like no contact, to which, sure, that works sometimes. But often they might use it in hope that their partner might feel, okay, you now feel the loss, you understand my value. While a little bit of that may help to some extent, it's not going to create the sense of, I need to change, I need to make this relationship work. It's just going to make them understand some feeling they might have. But they could have learned that in the relationship as well as other tools, okay? So I think that's where maybe this concept can be a bit confusing. Now, every person is different. I could be wrong, but I'm just telling you what I've noticed when I practice, when I see couples. Also understand that I'm biased because I'm a therapist. And so when I'm working with couples, I'm going to use it from that angle. I'm never going to say, hey, break up and then, 6 months later, everything will be fixed. No, that's not. Research shows that that's not the healthiest option, okay? Research shows that compromise, connecting, and trying to make the relationship work is a better option, right? In terms of divorce, I think people who remarry, I don't remember the statistic, but often it's more likely you remarry somebody else instead of your ex-partner, right? Now, I'm not trying to scare you guys, but there's a reason for that. Breaking up does not create the best solution for the relationship, the previous relationship, to stay together, okay? Sorry if that was a little long-winded. So let's go ahead and jump right into these two aspects. What constitutes as peace? And how can you guys leverage that to continue to make a healthy relationship? And then what constitutes as some sort of fear of loss, which you can leverage that to create a healthy relationship. So let's talk about peace. The very first one is just your overall presence. You just being there. A lot of people think you need to do something fancy. No, you just existing next to them, sitting next to them, talking to them, hearing them out. That is valuable. You guys don't realize how valuable you are, especially to an avoidant, because they don't say it. But avoidants, a lot of them don't really have much connection in their life because of the way they are. They're very independent. So you just being there means a lot to them. You just might not see it like that, but you do matter. You don't need them to have this grand gesture to prove it, and you don't have to do a grand gesture to prove it. Your presence truly is enough. The next one is a little bit more action-oriented, is the ability to take accountability. If you can take accountability, often avoidants find this to be something very appealing and allows them to feel peaceful, right? If you're able to take accountability, they feel peace. Okay, my feelings are heard. I can be appreciated. I know that whatever I say is going to be understood. They feel that way. And so sometimes you taking that step to take some sort of accountability, even if they're not ready to take accountability yet, can help them to feel like this relationship is peaceful. It actually might prompt them and model a behavior for them to take accountability as well, okay? The next one is low frequency of disagreements in general. Even if you're saying, I want to work on not arguing as much, that's helpful as well. But just not having as much disagreements can really make an avoidant feel this is a peaceful relationship. I don't want to lose this, right? And that'll tie into the second part we'll get into in a little bit. But the last piece about what constitutes as peace is something that a lot of people, I think, don't understand, but it's probably one of the most important ones. You guys just being together for a long time, that is usually what avoidance sees as peace. And I'm going to explain that. This is more common with dismissive avoidance, but fearful avoidance feel this way too. A lot of avoidants are pretty used to certain things once they get comfortable with it. Now, fearful avoidance, what they do is they're really afraid of being hurt and abandoned. So they take a lot longer to let someone in to the depths of them. However, they tend to stick really hard on something. So that's more common with fearful avoidance. But with dismissive avoidance, it doesn't even need to be that vulnerable of a situation. You just being there for like 5-10 years is enough for them to just be like, okay, this is just where I'm at. This is what my life is, right? Fearful avoidance, even so, if they've opened up to you, they're just going to hold on to you very tightly, because a lot of fearful avoidance struggle with decision making more than dismissive avoidance, what I've noticed. And so when they actually make a decision, finally, when they make that decision, they stick to it very hard. And so you being there for a long time after them struggling with that off and on, hot and cold type of feeling that they might feel internally, even if you don't see it, and they actually do decide, okay, you are the one, you're going to stay in my life, and you have accomplished that, you have stayed, they're just going to hold on to you for a really long time, if not forever. So that is what constitutes as peace. You just being with them for a long time, your presence, your accountability, your low frequency of disagreements, that is what they think is peace, okay? So what about the loss piece, okay? So we're talking about the two conflicting emotions. One part of it is the peace. The other part is the possibility of losing you, okay? Now, doesn't mean you have to walk away, but what does it mean? When you express what you want in a logical way without ultimatums, it shows that you're not just a object in their life, right? You are a person who has needs. And this prompts them to realize subconsciously that if they don't adjust at one point, you're going to be unhappy, possibly, and you'll take that piece away. And so you might leave. You're not giving an ultimatum. You're not even angry. You're just expressing yourself. All that it really means is just be yourself and express what you need in a logical way. You don't have to do it all the time, but just maybe once, twice, or maybe every couple months, whatever your system is. Express what you need, what you want, so that they can give that to you and feel that necessary connection that if they don't give you what you need, you have the right to leave, right? The next part of this is when you provide them the space that they need in that relationship, but it's not in a breakup sense. So you're providing them presence, but you're just giving them a little bit of space. It almost might be a ritual. And why this is important is because it does constitute as peace, but it also constitutes as loss. Because what happens is by you giving them the space that they need, they can also appreciate the time when they're with you. And so whatever it may be, let's say on weekends they want to not be on their phone as often, but you guys hang out maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever your system is. The weekend of you guys not really talking that much really makes them feel more appreciative of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of you guys hanging out. So it's not necessarily a loss, but it could be some sort of loss because they can remember that the absence of you, while it feels good for the moment because they get to, figure out how they're feeling and readjust, too much absence makes them feel like they don't really want that. And so they recognize, okay, if I ever lost you, it would be really hard, okay? The next one is you having your own sorts of happiness outside of the relationship can really help them to understand that you could leave them and you will be fine, which means that there is a slight possibility you could leave. I'm not saying you will, but it's true. And so it makes them realize they have to make some adjustment, and they want to, right? They want to. The next one is that you actually accept your partner's shortcomings without denial. A lot of people struggle with this because they swing one way or the other. You either are in full denial of their shortcomings or you're so angry and upset about them instead of just accepting them, right? Some people might even call it radical acceptance, right? DBT, but you can use it in a different way. We don't have to use it in a coping skill. We're just saying in general, when you accept your partner for the way they are, you're not necessarily trying to change them. You might be hoping a change, you might even communicate a change, but you still accept them for where they are, even if you're disappointed. And why is this constituting to a fear of loss? Because they realize, just like you realize, they're not on a pedestal. You're not on a pedestal. You're two people. You have two decision makings that might be different, to which their shortcomings might be the demise of the relationship. I'm not saying it will, but by appreciating those dynamics, they might be more willing to adjust themselves. And the very last one is that you acknowledge their efforts. Now, why is this part of loss? Because what happens is by you acknowledging their efforts, they realize subconsciously if they don't put in the effort, they could disappoint you. But it also gives them that sense of drive and purpose as well as commitment towards you. So none of these things about the fear of loss are necessarily you leaving. It's just you being yourself and appreciating the relationship for what it is. That's pretty much all it is. So let's summarize, okay? So the two conflicting feelings are peace and fear of loss, okay? What constitutes as peace is your presence, your ability to take accountability, the low frequency of disagreements, and you just being there for a long time as a relationship, okay? The next one is what constitutes as a fear of loss. You expressing what you need or what you want in a logical way, you providing some sort of space or alone time for them while still providing presence. So you're not leaving, you're just giving them maybe a couple hours to themselves, okay? The next one is you have your own source of happiness outside of the relationship. The fourth one is accepting your partner's shortcomings without denial or getting angry. And the fifth one is acknowledging their efforts. I hope this video was helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I will see you in the next one.